Hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Aoife Keane. I'm the Customer Marketing Specialist here at VisibleThread. I'm joined today by Kyle Peterson, VP of Customer Success. Kyle is going to be going through how to use watchwords in VT Writer. So if you're interested in taking your VT Writer skills to the next level, this training webinar is for you. Watchwords assist you in assessing the clarity of your content through the inclusion of your verbal style guide. Just to note, all slides and recordings will be emailed out after this webinar, but please feel free to ask us any questions in the Ask Question box and engage with us in the attendee chat. We'll get back to any questions at the end. So before we begin today's webinar, I want to draw your attention to some upcoming events we'll be hosting in the coming months. First up is the return of Optimize 23 on September 12th, with a focus on the future of business writing. We'll cover business writing and plain language best practices, objective metrics and showing value to leadership, as well as proposal writing best practices. This free one-day event is not to be missed, with over 13 speakers, over 10 sessions, and all over the course of 8 hours. It's the perfect event for professional development, networking, and expert industry knowledge. So if you want to click on the console, you'll be able to register today. Next up is our annual conference, VT Summit, taking place on November 1st at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Centre in National Harbour. We're bringing you more than just an event. We're curating a tailor-made agenda to drive success for you and your organisation. We'll be hosting hands-on webinars. We'll be hosting hands-on workshops where you'll gain practical skills from industry experts. This isn't just about listening, it's about participating, engaging, and taking an active role in your own growth. So finally, another great resource that is readily available is VT University. For those that may not be familiar with this resource, it's our free online learning platform with courses that provide you with step-by-step guidance to master our solution in no time. As I mentioned already, you'll be able to access these resources now in the related free content tab on the webinar console. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Kyle now, who'll run through the areas of watchwords that we'll be covering today. And Kyle will then follow up with some poll questions. You'll be able to click on the slides in the console to answer these questions. So take it away, Kyle.
Excellent. Thank you, Aoife. Welcome, everyone. Really appreciate your time. You know, we're always busy. It's a busy time of year. I think these webinars are great. Kudos to the marketing team for teeing me up. They make my life easy. I just get to show up and talk. So just to reiterate a couple of quick points and we'll dive right in. Definitely utilize that Q&A box. That's the best part of these webinars, in my opinion. Drop them in and we'll get through as many as we can at the end. And then, yeah, let's do it. So VT Writer, watchwords, a really powerful, important feature of VT Writer. My best, most engaged users of VT Writer have a personalized watchword list. We're going to go into detail here. What is a watchword? How do I put those lists together? What are some good examples? This is always a really fun discussion because there's awesome examples. It's all about language. It's very contextual. There's a lot of opinion and a lot of fun examples too, which we'll go through. So that's the plan. Just to tee us up, just like kind of past webinars, we'll ask a couple of questions just to get the group thinking. This also helps me identify within the room who's used them, who knows what they are, and if you don't, no big deal. But if you can click directly on the screen to answer the question, that's all you have to do. If anyone's used them, customized a list, taken action, even if you haven't put your own list together, if you've seen one flagged, have you taken action on it? That would be a yes for this question. For example, I'll just let a couple questions roll in and then we'll share the results. We just have 2 more questions for you. And I'll give as much as I take, don't worry. Okay. So you can certainly keep, well, I'll give it just 30 more seconds. I can't, and just while we wait, cannot recommend enough the VT Summit. November 1st. Please, please, please do attend. It's a great event. I'll probably maybe go into more detail here at the end, but just wanted to plug that. Can't recommend it enough. Very, very value add. You won't just sit there and look at a PowerPoint slide for 9 hours. I wouldn't do that to you. Excellent. Okay, let's take a look. So a lot of no's. That's why we do these webinars. So really glad you're here. And if you have used it, great. Feel free to fire off some questions in terms of just making your usage even better. And then for those people that have created or used watchwords, curious, you can put in guidance. You can say, use this instead. Avoid using this, using this. Are you calling out alternatives? Or is it just something as simple as, we prefer you don't use this type of language, reword? I think it's an important but subtle distinction. The reason we're asking is we're actually working on a product update right now as we speak that will allow you to actually kind of hotkey specified alternatives, and you can make that change automatically. We didn't have that many yeses, so I'm just going to jump over to the next screen. Okay, just about split. Excellent. So my yeses, get excited for a product update. For my no's, we'll educate you here just in a moment. Final question. Do my organizations represented, do we have a style or editorial guide? A lot of the user groups that I work with do. We have a list of words we don't like to use, faux pas, jargon, but then we also have on kind of the flip side, we have preferred language. How do we refer to our organizations? Is it VisibleThread with a space? Is it VisibleThread with a lowercase t? That would be our example. I know a lot of organizations have those. The reason we're asking the question is those guides can be the starter of your watchword list. That can be the genesis of it or the inspiration for it. And you don't need to have a style guide to create watchwords, but like I said, this just helps kickstart things. Excellent. Good responses here. Thanks all. Yes. So as I thought, always good to confirm our instincts. So for those who have not created a watchword list, we're going to use that style guide to help get one started. And we'll talk about the mechanics here in just a moment. Okay. Thanks all. That's always very helpful for us. Hopefully it's helpful for you, and it just stimulates good discussion as well. Oh, I lied. Terrible liar. Last question. For those who have style guides, what challenges do we face? Is it just getting people to adopt and put it into practice? For those that don't have one, that's an easy answer. Is it we have one and we want to use it, we know we can use it, we don't have the time to employ it? Or is our style guide just not fit for purpose? Curious to see the group's thoughts there. Just double check. This is the last question. So well done, everyone. Thank you so much. Okay, let's take a look at the results and we'll dive into the action here. Understood. Okay, interesting stuff. Great. So based on kind of what I'm showing here, we can be thinking in the back of our head, how can VisibleThread help drive that adoption? And then the don't have, no big deal. We'll show you how you can create a watchword list, style guide or no style guide. Okay, so just a couple slides to tee us up and then I'll share my screen. So just as a reminder for those who have used VisibleThread, or if this is brand new to you, just wanted to give you a quick overview of watchwords within VisibleThread. They're highlighted in yellow. It's a specific word that you're telling VisibleThread to look for, hence the name watchword. But we can also then drive action or adjustment. So for example, deemed. We've told VisibleThread, look for deemed. So we'll highlight it in yellow wherever it appears in your desired text. And we'll provide, and this is where you can tailor it and edit it, we'll provide an alternative. Instead of deemed, let's use our, or R, excuse me. That could be a watchword too, right? So that's what the watchword looks like. And it's anything. It's perfectly customizable. That's where we can get into consistency, adherence to style guides. And the other thing I want the group here to think about is as we work with more writers, more authors, more drafts, this challenge kind of compounds in difficulty. How do we know how many times our authors are using deemed, for instance, or incorrect? If Aoife is using VisibleThread with a space, I'm using VisibleThread without a space. That's a difficult challenge to do manually, and then also spread out over a wider organization of writers and content. So that's kind of the problem that we want to solve here today with watchwords. You can build that list. This is what your editor looks like within VT Writer. This is actually going through a product update right now as we speak, but this is what you see currently. We can add watchwords to our lists within VisibleThread itself, within the browser version of the software, or we can do bulk uploads from CSV files. And if we're dealing with dozens of terms, if people are more nimble with Excel, we can do that. You don't have to do one word at a time. Excellent. Okay, and I'm going to tee myself up with these examples and we'll dive in. So, things to think about. Are we utilizing customer language? Are we showing through our content, through our responses, through our prose, that we know our customer? We can use watchwords to do that. For my larger organizations or anyone that does business around the world, VT Writer has foreign language capability, which is awesome. Watchwords can kind of filter into that too. We have a lot of French language VT Writer users in France and Canada, kind of Francophone Canada. So I wanted to call that out. And then finally, we can also use watchwords to enforce that style and consistency, capitalizations, spacing, things like that. Excellent. Okay, so I will share my screen. We'll go through a couple of examples of watchwords in action, and then I'll show you kind of how to create and edit those lists. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to start with a fairly simple example, and we'll ramp up in complexity. But Costco, great example. It's a warehouse store, discount warehouse store for those who don't know. And so we're going to use kind of Costco terminology to make sure that we're speaking coherently. Do we know Costco as a customer? So for instance, Kyle Peterson Inc. is trying to win business with Costco. And this is just a snippet of my proposal executive summary. What I'm showing you here is our VT Writer Microsoft Word add-in, which if you have VT Writer and you do not have the Microsoft Word add-in installed, please, please, please reach out to your customer success manager and your IT teams. Hugely powerful. I don't have to ever leave Microsoft Word to get the benefit of VT Writer. So I've written one paragraph. Imagine you've written 100 pages. VT Writer is here when I analyze this content. And here, we're delighted to submit a proposal to our valued customer, Costco Wholesale. We believe their best-in-class solution can provide the solutions that Costco is asking for and any other deliverables as may be required. We guarantee satisfaction for Costco customers from the minute they walk into a Costco store. Now, you'll probably notice I've dropped in a couple landmines here. So this is that standard kind of VT Writer analysis, long sentences, passive voice, grade level, but we've found 14 watchwords here. So I'm just going to toggle, and you can do that here. Let's just focus on our watchwords for now, because this is a watchword webinar. So I've got 14 watchwords in this small paragraph. Co-customer is a good example. In this case, our customer is Costco, so that's okay. But we say, when we're speaking to Costco customers, we want to use the word member. It's a club. So in that case, cool. I don't need to change that one. But if we jump further down here, we guarantee satisfaction for Costco customers. In that case, yes, we should be using the word members and even actually capitalized. So let's make that change. Excellent. Store is another good example. Costco refers to their stores as warehouses. So we can flag the word store. And once again, there's my guidance. Use warehouse when speaking to Costco, for instance. So whenever Costco members walk into a Costco warehouse. Excellent. So This is a purposely simple example, but this is where we can use watchwords to make sure we're showing that we know our customer. We're speaking their language. But as you can see too, we can also add in other types of watchwords, and we can group them with categories. So as may be required. That's kind of a dangerous statement for a binding proposal, isn't it? That's opening us up to scope creep. So really, in this case, it doesn't even necessarily need to be use this word instead. I actually think we should just delete it. We'll deliver what Costco's asking for in the RFP, for instance. So in this RFP, so on and so forth. So that's where, watchwords can be layered. We want to speak our customer's language and avoid dangerous terminology like that open-ended, as may be required, guarantee, same idea. That's a big binding word, isn't it? And so we can help our writers see that and then take action. So, we'll strive to provide, something like that. Or just we will provide, something like that. Okay, so we've made some changes, okay. And then, so keep that in mind, 14 watchwords were found. I've made my changes, I'm going to reanalyze. And so VisibleThread, and it does this as well in the browser version, but within the word add-in will show you, we've reduced those watchwords down to 12 now. And actually by doing that, we also decreased passive voice and we increased our readability. Happy days. And then we can continue to iterate and edit to our heart's content. So that's one example here. Let me open up another. We'll go through kind of two more examples and we'll talk about how to create these. But I think they're really pretty straightforward. So let's see. So this is more of we work with a lot of financial services, healthcare organizations. If we're speaking to consumers, to the public, in kind of a letter form, same idea. We're getting our readability analysis, but VisibleThread is also calling out these watchwords for us. I'm going to toggle down just to my watchwords. And we can read through, we can make these edits, but I know, for instance, deemed is a watchword here. And so what we can do is we should be using the word our instead. Purposely formal, and in this case I have my track changes on, which we'll accept, and I'll actually turn that off. Cool. So any kind of content, that's kind of the bottom line here. Inconvenience here, we're sorry for any inconvenience. That's a bit of a sterile word. It's multi-syllable words will ding your readability scores. So maybe instead of any inconvenience, if we're talking about changes to your health insurance, particularly when it's talking about a termination, maybe we use the word worry instead. It is more human with fewer syllables. Good call out. I agree. Apologize for any worry. So, and you can reanalyze and we'll see those changes. So watchwords are a really important component of our overall kind of readability scores. And we'll see that inconvenience is no longer flagged. We went down from 40 watchwords to 38 in this case. Happy days. Final example to kind of just show off our foreign language capability, and then we'll talk about how to create these lists. So in honor of Bastille Day last month and our French-speaking users, I've taken the lyrics to Les Marseillaise, the French national anthem, and I just want to call out that VisibleThread is detecting that this is French, hence the FR here in the top right. And we are calling out, once again, long words. Mat long is a long word. Mat is word. We see 6 watchwords. And I had to brush up on my 8th grade French this morning. So we're just filtering down. And not only can we call out watchwords, but same idea, we can call out style. So in this example, and if there are any native French speakers on the phone, they can feel free to disagree with me. But in this example, if we're talking about patrie, our country, let's make sure that P is uppercase. So it can even be as simple as capitalization. Good stuff. Same idea with citoyen, citizen. We want to make sure it's always uppercase in this hypothetical French national anthem analysis. So we can change words, we can uppercase certain words, and even something as simple as liberté. This is a typo. You know, liberté, the E needs an accent on the last E. So it's a great way to catch things like that. And I'm going to grab that. Cool. There we go. Oh, that's a style example as well. And VT Writer has its passport. Your fun fact, so our language ability, we can run readability and watchword analysis on any language that uses the Latin alphabet. French, German, Spanish, Italian, so on and so forth. Where VT Writer can't analyze content yet is more kind of symbol or character-based languages. Think Mandarin, Japanese, Russian, Hindi. Not yet. And we reduced our use of watchwords. So for those multinational groups, if we're doing business abroad, this can be powerful as well. Okay, so those are watchwords in action, and I really wanted to call out the VT Writer add-in. Just as a reminder, though, for the group, this is VT Writer, just the browser version of it. It's the same capability. I just have to go into VT Writer. You can upload entire documents here, or even text snippets. I'm just going to drop in Marseillaise quickly here. So just as a reminder for those who don't have the word installed yet, this is what that looks like. Excellent. We still get our readability scoring. Happy days. And then we're calling out those watchwords in yellow. And I can edit it in line. You know, citoyen needs to be capitalized. Excellent, excellent. Good stuff. So there we go. So let's talk about creating these lists. This is really where the rubber meets the road. I think watchwords as a concept are pretty straightforward. I think VT Writer is really very straightforward to use. Let's talk about that all-important list. So I'm VT Writer. Here we go. I'm moving down into my settings area, down here on the left. And I'm going to click on watchwords right here. So this is where my list of watchwords live. I can create and edit watchwords right within VT Writer. I can also do this in bulk in a CSV Excel file and do a mass import as well. But just to get the group comfortable, what are we seeing here? The watchword itself is this column, the search term. Happy to, may provide, might deliver, bells and whistles. Those are my watchwords that in this hypothetical example, I don't want my writers implying or employing. So the description is bringing in the prescriptive guidance. What do we want them to do instead? Do we want them to avoid using it? Do we want them to use certain words instead? That goes here in the description. You can decide if words are case sensitive. So we're only going to flag case sensitive watchwords. Like, you know, for a great example would be acronyms. An acronym is all capitalized. I'd want that to be case sensitive. So we'll only flag it. You have the ability to dictate that here. And then also applies to language. I mentioned the French example. You can choose to only have it apply to French here, if you were feeling particularly well-traveled that day. Finally, I left the category here for last. Think of categories as groupings, you know, looking for credibility type language. versus inclusive language. It's just a way to group, organize these watchwords, and those categories will be called out in the analysis as well. It allows us to prioritize and say, oh, okay, in this case, why are we flagging it? Are we imposing potential delivery risk on ourselves, or are we just not using preferred inclusive language? You can do that here. Okay, so now that we're all oriented, we can drop in one-off examples here. So I'm just going to click add. It will always default to the last category. In this case, I'm just going to change it up. I'm going to call it simplified language. Or simplify, how about, we'll make it more active. That's my category. And then the watchword itself, I was a former contracts guy, so let's drop in some jargon, for instance, notwithstanding. That's a search term. I don't want my writers, I don't want content, Kyle Peterson Inc. content using the word notwithstanding. It's unnecessarily ornamental and complex. We can use before instead. That's all notwithstanding means. And it doesn't need to be case sensitive. I want it to apply to all language. Heck yeah. I can click add again. We copy down that category, and we'll also grab, heretofore. Until I'm a recovering contracts manager. Same idea. Too many syllables, unnecessarily ornamental. Oh, forgive me, this is, heretofore is actually before, and notwithstanding is despite. So, and that's why we don't use them, right? We can see the error in our ways in real time. I don't want it to be case sensitive. Cool, I'm gonna edit this one quickly. Use despite instead. Cool. I'll save my changes. That's how you can create a watchword list right within VisibleThread. Finally, let's talk about bulk uploads. So you can export this to a CSV file. Great way to update an existing list. So these are all the watchwords I have in my VT environment right now. And you'll notice it's the same kind of structure. It's just in Excel. This is my category, column A. My search term itself, my watchword is column B. What do we want you to use instead? What guidance are we providing? That goes in C. And then false and true, that's your case sensitivity. If you go true, that means it will be case sensitive. False means it won't. And then that's applying to all language. E is the language. If you want it to apply only to French, type in FR and you can drag it down, for instance. So think of CSVs for bigger, bulker, more gnarly edits, and we can just do a mass upload. So once we've made our changes, we can save it, and you just simply click import, and then you choose that file, and then you have the option to append or overwrite. It's important. Do we want to totally update the existing list, or do we just want to add on the new words? You've got that option here. So pretty straightforward. The last thing I'm going to close with here is great, Kyle, cool. You've talked about the structure, but for those people that say, I've never created a watchword list before, I understand how to do it, but where do I start? If I have any proposal managers, proposal writers, proposal coordinators on the line, I just build words to avoid in proposals. And I got this handy table here. And so for instance, let's just grab this. And they even provide for us the search term itself and some guidance. You can use this. And I'm just going to open up, or let me just open up a new tab here. There we go. These are my search terms, my watchwords rather, excuse me. C is that description. Why are we flagging it? And then A is the category. And that's where, don't get too worked up on the category. This guide is saying these are vague words. Cool. I'll just say they're vague words. And you can drag it down. Just one more. So, like weak words. There we go. So don't let kind of the tyranny of the blank page daunt you. This is a watchword list now. And so the reason I'm showing this is if you've never created it, just want to demystify it. It's really pretty straightforward. The other thing I want the group to think about is if you have style or editorial guides, use that to help you get this list started. I'm pretty darn sure that they'll have examples like this. And like I said, even within VisibleThread, we want no space. So we're going to look for VisibleThread with a space. No space. And then even same idea, with lowercase case words as well. This would be a case sensitive one where my writer has correctly gone with no space, but I do want this to be case sensitive. Find lowercase VisibleThread, capitalized. There we go. And this, we'll just call it, VT branding. So that's how easy it is. I could save this and I can upload it into my environment. So that's all watchwords are. So now you've seen them in practice. We've seen how to create, edit, and destroy watchword lists. The other thing that I want to highlight now is an upcoming product update. Our engineers have done amazing work the last few months. It's looking like it will be ready for release here before New Year's. So think Q4. We're creating the ability to provide actual suggestions, and we can make that suggestion in real time. So there's a change to the interface to create those lists. It'll be more friendly and faster. And then we'll also have the ability to make changes automatically within our writing. So I'm actually going to show you a video of that. I have not yet been granted a demo sandbox for it yet, but I have a video to show you guys, and I'll just kind of speak to it. So just one moment here as I bring the video up. And I'm showing screen 2. So like I mentioned, there's no video, so I'll kind of provide the commentary here. So this is product update this year. We're in our watchwords list now, and you can see already a change to the interface. So our search term, our watchword itself, farthest left. So federal terminology is my category. So that's still kind of on top, but we're going to nest it. So it's not, 1, 2, 3 comes over to the right. Federal terminology is my category in this case. Lowercase government is my search term. You can tab and use your keyboard here. It's less clicking. And we can now, you'll see, beyond just the description, you can also drop in alternative words. What do we want to change the word to? So in this case, federal government capitalized, state government capitalized. So what would that look like in action? We're filtering to our watchwords. And there we see an uppercase government, forgive me, but it's just plain Jane government. And we decided to make the change to federal government, and it did it automatically. Let me just back up because it was so fast. Yep, so there is my plain Jane government there. We have the ability, we see that change to federal government, state government. What government are we speaking to, for instance? And I'm going to click federal government, and it automatically made the change in line. So really powerful update there that's coming before the end of the year. Excellent. So now we're flagging it, providing the guidance. You have to make the change yourself. By the end of the year, we'll flag it. We'll still provide guidance, but you'll also have the ability to automatically click suggested alternatives, and it'll make the change in line automatically. Really powerful stuff. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and let's see. Before we go into Q&A, Aoife, I believe, whoops, I knew it. So just some follow-up poll questions, and then we'll get into Q&A. And this just helps, once again, with as we think about how to make the product better, as we think about making these webinars always compelling, always relevant, always worth your time, these kind of follow-up questions help us do that. So everything that you saw here today, you know, customer language, Costco stores are called warehouses. I was working, I forgot the name of the company. It was more of a consulting, kind of boutique consultancy. And when they were speaking to their physical offices, they don't use the word office, they use the word studio. That would be an example there. You know, that foreign language capability. If I have any Francophone, you know, bilingual writers, if I'm trying to win business in Mexico, South America, Spain, I think it's an important capability. Curious what the group thinks. And then finally, style and consistency. Uppercase, lowercase, spacing or no spacing in terms of how we're referring to ourselves. Even, you know, those dangerous kind of contractually binding words as may be required, guaranteed. Just curious what the group thinks. If you had to pick one. It's never a black and white world, but for 10 seconds, I'll make you choose. As a reminder, you can just click directly on the screen. Excellent. So just 60-40 split, speaking customer language, style and consistency, foreign language, not quite as relevant to this group. All good, really good feedback, appreciate it. Cool. Yep, and we just saw this video, and these slides will be provided. So if the video is too fast, this will just provide a review, a refresher on how that watchword replace looks today on this screen. Then we'll show the product update. Where can we drop in those suggested alternatives? That's coming down the pike. And then the next one's a video clip, which I'm just going to jump over because we already saw the video. Although it looks like it's playing, isn't it, Aoife? I'm just going to stop it. There we go. Excellent. Okay. Q&A. So keep the questions coming. I see we already have a couple. Let's take a look. Tara, are Government of Canada departments using the add-in? Let me get an exact answer for you. I believe I've heard through the grapevine that at least one department is, their kind of IT is reviewing it currently for the install. But like I said, I'll give you an exact answer here. I'm making a note to follow up. And then Aoife, keep me honest there, please, if you don't mind.
Will do.
Okay. Stacy, great to see you. Thanks for joining. Would the VT Writer plugin show watchwords on a shared document to contributors who do not have VT access? That's a good question. So the watchword add-in is based on your license. So you saw me log in earlier as Kyle Peterson. However, if there are existing comments and red lines to documents, a VT Writer license holder could use and deploy the add-in. Let me get an exact answer from my engineers, though, in terms of whether that analysis would be universally available. I don't believe so, but like I said, I'll get you an exact answer there. But we can work around existing comments and red lines. I can't say that. So as you are collaborating, you as a writer or a VT writer license holder could benefit at the very least. I'm seeing in the chat progress in our French offerings. So great news on the French front, to use some alliteration. So currently we can identify long sentences in French and readability scores. We have not been able to identify passive voice in French language content. That same product update where we're going to have the watchword automatic replace, we will be able to detect passive voice in French. Which is great product update, and credit to some of our Francophone customers for asking for that. By the end of the year, you'll be able to detect passive voice in French. So that's our big kind of French language update. Michelle, yes, happy to send over that list of watchwords. Absolutely. Anything we can do to just tee people up. And you know, there's those network effects of we all have certain words that maybe we hadn't thought of. Happy to send that over.
We have another question there, Kyle. What do you think is the best practice for putting a watchword list together?
Sure. So mentioned it earlier, I'll reiterate it. If you have an existing style or editorial guide, those are great sources of inspiration. So you're not just looking at a blank page. I would use that. I've even seen people use evaluator feedback sometimes if there's certain kind of call out, certain feedback. And then the other thing that I think has worked well with other larger deployments I've worked with is they almost kind of have a monthly watchword panel where writers can kind of submit proposed watchwords. Hey, I think we should flag this. This would be the alternative. And once a month, kind of, and usually people use existing kind of stand-up meetings to kind of verify, yep, these were the nominated words this month. Do we agree? Do we agree with the alternatives? So that's kind of more of a tactical process-based suggestion, but that's where, once again, we benefit. It doesn't always fall to one person to put together a comprehensive list. Lean on your writers, lean on your editors, lean on your BD teams. Guys, if we're speaking to customer XYZ, how do they like to be referred to? You know, I've used this example all the time, but I did a lot of contracting work with the Air Force a couple of years ago, you know, speaking to airmen, not soldiers, sailors, not Marines, vice versa. You know, so look for BD help there. And then, yeah, whether you drop it within VT Writer or in kind of a CSV file, those are always great places to start. Or even just Google, like I said, words to avoid using in proposal. Sometimes can be as simple as that.
Great. Another question then on how do we know if we're getting it better at our use of watchwords?
Sure, yeah. And I forgot to mention that. So yes, half the battle is identifying watchwords and making those changes. But perfectly valid question and concern. Can I see if my writers, if my content is getting better over time? Are we seeing a decrease in the use of watchwords, for instance? So I'll share my screen again. So within VT Writer, there is kind of an added feature called Insights. And this allows me to see not only usage data, you know, quality. How is my written quality over time? And we can see this dashboard for entire deployments. We can filter it by users, by team, by content. But in terms of watchwords, you see we have a quality tab. We also have a watchwords tab. And VisibleThread will track our usage of watchwords over time vis-a-vis the number of scans. So April, a lot of watchword hits, over fewer scans. that's kind of interesting. The one-to-one relationship can make sense sometimes. Ultimately, we want to see that usage decrease over time. But this ability to see that over time, you can filter it. Maybe instead of 6 months, maybe it's all time. Maybe it's year to date, quarter to date, last month, last week, yesterday. There's a lot of ways we can slice and dice this data. And maybe, let's take a look at April. That's kind of interesting there. I can just jump down here to April 2023. A lot of words were scanned in April. I can jump to scans, or even here, 50,000 watchword hits. Let's take a look. And I can see, Angus McDonough here, member of my team, a lot of watchword hits. And we can continue, 12% of the words he scanned were watchwords. There's a lot of visibility here. Do we need extra coaching, guidance? Maybe there's perfectly valid reasons for it, but this visibility is really important. And once again, we can see it by team, but we see that customer success really is showing the bulk of those hits. So insights, really powerful, particularly for larger enterprise deployments. That visibility is key. And that's where I think VT Writer is so elegant. From just the day-to-day tactical changes to the writing itself, but then also this visibility of how we're doing. And this is April, so if I jump back out, say year to date, there we go. Whereas July, that's a pretty good month. Even though our scans went up, our watchwords weren't quite as heavy. Good stuff. Good question. Other questions?
You may have already covered this one. I see another one come in about, could watchwords be used to help with US English to British English? Somebody seems to have a problem with that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Let me just bring up my quick watchword list. So even something as simple as, UK and US English, we both countries do speak English, but even something as simple as, and this is where your categories can really come in handy. Do I want to flag British English and change it to American English? Probably is the wrong word to use, but British to US English. In that case, I'm looking for that tricky U in color, right? Use color instead, or avoid the U. And that's where those automatic alternatives will really come in handy. Just immediately, boom. I don't need that pesky U. Use color instead. Tube. Let's use subway. So I'm trying to remember from my stint across the pond. But yes. So, and then you can just flip this on its head too, right? You can do the same thing. You can essentially copy back over your list. US to British. Same idea. You could just swap those columns, and even something as simple as, my memory serves me, US, we use an S in defense. The Brits use a C. There we go. Yep. So good example, and I am working with writers that are doing that right now. Good call out. And that's where watchwords are so cool. There's just a lot of fun, interesting examples. Soccer versus football, an ancient debate. Cool. Anything else, Sifa? If not, I'll just give one more plug for the summit, actually, I think.
Great.
Awesome. Okay. Good questions, guys. Really appreciate it. Just a couple kind of closing housekeeping items here. So, just as a summary, you'll receive this recording. You'll receive these slides. What did we cover today? What's a watchword? What does it look like in situ? How do we create those lists? How do we get them in and out of VisibleThread? All pretty straightforward. my team is here. If you have questions, if you don't know your customer success manager, ideally you do. If you don't, you can actually click right there on that link. You can book time with a member of my team. We are here to help, here to answer questions. Best part of the job is, hey, Kyle, how do I? And helping you solve that problem. So always here. Aoife mentioned VT University at the top of the hour. Cannot stress enough how important that is. Great investment this year in self-serve, free, on-demand training, education, and engagement. VT University is a great way to just build up those skills. It's not a major time commitment. And because it's module-based, if you just need a quick refresher, shoot, I just need a reminder on a watchword. I can just go straight to that module and spend 10 minutes, game on. So we have both docs and writer courses available now, whether you have a license or not. Next webinar, next month, oh gosh, time's flying, is all about the compliance matrix feature of VT Docs. So you'll see me again in a month. Would love to see you guys. And then, yes, Optimize, do attend. That's a virtual event, free to attend. There's a plethora of speakers, and you can, Aoife, you can sign up for all sessions or just the sessions that jump out at you, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Excellent. So that's kind of after Labor Day here. And then that summit, cannot stress enough how powerful that is. It's educational, it's value add. If you are an expert power user and you just want to understand how you can take your skills to the next level, the summit's for you. If you're still relatively new to VisibleThread, great way to really accelerate your knowledge of the platform. You can hear how other people are doing it, using it to great effect. And I have a lot of users that use it really, really well. This is a great source of inspiration. Oh, I'd never thought of it that way. And there'll be a mix of kind of more traditional conference style panels and presentations, but also those roundtables. So you can talk, work together, network. I've never loved the word networking, but network, dare I say. And it's about as much fun as you can have with document analysis. So would love to see any and all there. Free to attend other than your time, the 1st of November. So Aoife, did I miss anything?
No, that's everything.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I'll pass you the baton back.
Perfect. Thanks everybody for attending today's training webinar. We really look forward to seeing you at our next one. And thank you for your time. All the best.